Chapter 15. I knocked on Tina's door before opening it. "Hello? Tina?" "Hi, Zoe," she greeted me. "Come on in. I'll be right with you." I took a seat on the chair opposite her, as usual. I glanced around the room as she finished whatever she was working on. There wasn't anything new, just the usual signs here and there. Success is knowing how to get where you're going, and follow your heart and proceed with confidence. My favorite was the one on the back of the door. Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. Philosophy is wondering if ketchup is a smoothie. "So," said Tina, turning from her computer to look at me, "what can I do for you?" "I want to talk about that study abroad thing," I told her. She smiled. "Cutting it a little close, huh? It's a good thing we reserved that spot for you. All the other spots are filled and there's a waiting list a dozen people long." I nodded. "Thank you for that, but I have some questions about the trip." "What would you like to know?" "Well," I started, "how much does it cost? Do I have to pay for my own way there, or housing, or food?" "Housing and food are provided for you if you stay at the campus dorms. Otherwise, you will have to pay for it yourself. All your classes cost the same as usual. You'll have to pay for your travel there and back, though." "What classes are offered there?" "Most of the core classes: math, science, magicus, history, literature, language, health. However, most of them focus on the local culture. History of South America, literature of the continent. Brazilian Portuguese is, of course, the most common foreign language studied. I believe I mentioned that before." She paused. "I can give you a list of the courses offered if you want to go. You'll have to decide what you want to do by tomorrow, though, since it's the last day to register." I smiled. "Well, that shouldn't be too hard. I definitely want to take the Portuguese class if they offer it at level 3, and a literature class." "Does that mean you want to go?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, I think it would be a good experience to get out into the world. And away from my life." Tina reached into her drawer in her desk and pulled out a paper for me. "Here's a list of all the courses the school in Belim offers." I read down the list, surprised at how long it actually was. "Remind me exactly which core classes I still need?" I asked. Tina took a little longer to find my file than she had the study abroad list. She opened it to the last page. Natural or physical science, magicus or magitech, mathematics, health or physical education, public speaking. I grimaced as she named the last one. Along with math, that was the class I'd been most reluctant to take. I looked down at the list of courses again. All of the ones she named were offered. "Portuguese for sure," I said, thinking aloud. Tina grabbed a pencil and notepad and started writing the information down. "I think the South American literature class would be good, too." I paused, considering which core classes I should take. I really did need to put some of those in my schedule. I'd been focusing a lot on the language and literature, obviously. Eventually I decided on Intro to the Amazon for my science requirement and Intro to Magitech for my Magicus-related course. But I needed at least another class or two to fill up my schedule, especially since I wasn't going to be working while I was down there. Against my will, my eyes kept wandering to the public speaking course. I knew I had to do it eventually, and the back of my mind kept saying, "Now is as good a time as any, isn't it?" "I guess I'll take the public speaking course," I finally said, sighing heavily. "Might as well get it over with." Tina nodded and wrote it down. "That makes 5 classes and 14 credit hours, a full course load." I continued scanning the course list thoughtfully. "I'll only be down there for half a term?" I asked. She nodded. "Since I won't be working, I'd like to do an extra class, but then I'd have way too much to do when I get back." "Well," she said thoughtfully, "some of the classes have a double credit option. That means you'll spend twice as long in the class each week while you're there, but you'll finish by the time you get back home." "You have something like that?" I asked, surprised. I'd never heard of that kind of class before. She nodded. "Most people would rather have the free time to do touristy things, but if you're interested, the public speaking course has that program set up. So does the health and lifetime sports." "What's that?" "Half of the time you'll be in class doing book learning. The other half you'll be out doing things like golfing and swimming." My face brightened. "That doesn't sound so bad. Of course, since you'll be in Brazil, you'll probably be doing more local sports, such as volleyball and soccer. They call it football there. Possibly some martial arts and scuba diving and dancing. It would be 2 hours of class and 2 hours of sports per week." "I'll take that and the public speaking for double credits," I said excitedly. "Get the public speaking out of the way in half a term? Hell yes." There's also a list of optional extra credit activities you can sign up for through the school. Boat tours down the Fioro Santa Maria, trips to the museums, zoos, parks, botanical gardens, and a Magitech development facility. They hire local guides for those things. It's not worth any school credits, but it gives you the opportunity to explore and learn things you might not otherwise have discovered by yourself. Unfortunately, you'll just miss the Bumamehueo festival. Do I have to decide those today? I asked, suddenly overwhelmed with all the decisions I had to make. No, she said lightly, smiling. I'll give you the list and you can sign up anytime between now and the date the tour is offered. Just be aware, they might fill up if you wait too long, but you'll have 8 weeks to get all the exploration in that you want. Tina found another sheet in her drawer and handed it to me. On it was the list of activities offered around Belém, their dates and times. I folded it in half and stuck it in my backpack. A small stack of paperwork later, and I was officially signed up for the study abroad program. I was about to leave when I thought of something I hadn't considered when deciding to do this. Honestly, I hadn't considered much of anything when I decided to study abroad, except the fact it would get me the hell away from my house and everything that reminded me of him. This may seem like a strange question, but can I take my cats with me? I asked. Pets are not allowed to stay with students on the school grounds. If you want to change your accommodations, I can help you find somewhere else to stay. She paused and I shook my head. Then I'm sorry, but you'll have to find other arrangements. I nodded. I understand. Anything else? No, I said and smiled. I stood and held out my hand. Thank you. I'm really looking forward to this. Tina shook my hand. Glad you decided to go. I'm sure you'll have a great time. I thought about my decision to do the study abroad program as I made my way home via public transportation. It had been on the back of my mind since Tina had suggested it almost 2 months earlier, but I hadn't seriously considered it with all the chaos that had been going on in the world. I'd only decided to do it the night before while I'd unsuccessfully tried to go to sleep. Even my meds hadn't helped. I'd been trapped in a cycle of thoughts about Mikhail, driving myself crazy trying to figure out what happened, what went wrong, why he left, why he didn't want to explain. I'd felt depressed, hopeless, and trapped when I suddenly remembered the study abroad option. I told myself it was to better myself, to get out in the world, travel like I always wanted to, learn about cultures from the people themselves and not just textbooks. But in my heart, I knew all I was really doing was trying to run away from my problems. If I wasn't home, I wouldn't have to think about him every time I looked at my computer. I wouldn't feel like my life was missing something important. I wouldn't have to dread walking into my house every day, knowing the person I loved wasn't going to be there when I wanted someone to talk to. When I got home, my cats greeted me excitedly, as always. Sometimes I wondered if it was just because they knew I was going to give them their daily snack. But seeing them reminded me of the last thing I had to do to get ready for my trip. After feeding the cats, I gave Aaron a call. Hey, I greeted him. Hi, Z. What's up? I hadn't told him about Mikhail leaving yet. It had only been 2 days, and I wasn't ready to talk about it with anyone. Besides, he was still recovering from his own emotional roller coaster. I decided to go for that study abroad program, I told him. That's great, he said. When do you leave? July 6th. So I called you today because I wanted to ask before I forgot. Can you take care of my cats for me while I'm gone? Sure, no problem. I thought for a moment. Okay, this is a lot to ask, but can you also keep them at your place? I just don't like the idea of them being all alone for 2 months. Aaron didn't hesitate. Of course. It'll be easier for me to care for them here anyway, rather than going to your place a few times a day. I grinned. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. So, 2 months, huh? Yeah, but I've got a couple weeks off after the term ends and before I leave, so maybe we can hang out a bunch before I'm gone? Aaron chuckled. Sure, why not? Great. Well, maybe I'll see you tomorrow? Looking forward to it. We can play some point of contact again if you want to bring your gear with you. Sounds like a plan, I answered. We said goodbye and I hung up the phone. I looked around my small apartment and sighed. Only 1 more month, then I would get some freedom from the oppressing void I felt every time I was home. Tammy came over to me and started rubbing against my legs, purring. I swear she knew what I was thinking and was trying to remind me that I wasn't as alone as I felt. I reached down to pet her before heading into the kitchen to find some dinner I wasn't sure I wanted to eat.